Hi everyone, Susan Storm here. I'm the founder of Psychology Junkie and a certified MBTI practitioner, and today I want to explore the ISTJ personality type with you. So if you're wondering if this is your best fit personality type or the personality type of someone you know, this is a great place to start. Let's begin by exploring those letters. What do they mean? The I in ISTJ stands for introvert. ISTJs have energy that flows inwards towards thoughts, ideas, and reflections. While they can get a lot of tasks done in the outer world, they really need a lot of time alone to recharge and to process what's going on inside their own mind. The S in ISTJ stands for sensor. ISTJs focus on the world of the senses where they can hear, smell, touch, taste. They tend to have a very pragmatic, down-to-earth approach to life. Rather than focusing on a lot of abstract ideas or what-if concepts or theories, they're more realistic. They're more aware of the here and now and the personal experiences they've had in their own lives. Next, ISTJs are thinking types. This means that when ISTJs come to a decision, they try to step outside of the situation in order to see things as objectively as possible. They try not to let personal bias cloud their judgment. Instead, they try to look at logic, the pros and cons, and facts in order to make the clearest, most sensible decision that they can make. Next, the J for ISTJ stands for judging. Judging types like to have a planned out, methodical approach to life. Rather than the day happening to them, they happen to their day. That means they approach their day with a sense of structure. They approach their day with a plan. They usually have a to-do list. They like closure and decision, and they like knowing what's going to happen. So that's just scratching the surface of what it means to be an ISTJ. We're going to dig a little bit deeper by exploring their cognitive functions. If you're not sure what that is, don't worry. The cognitive functions are essentially the mental processes we use when we observe the world around us and when we make decisions. Everyone has 8 cognitive functions, but 4 that are most conscious and valued to them. The first and most valued cognitive function of the ISTJ is one called Introverted Sensing. You might hear people call this SI for short. Introverted Sensing is about grounding yourself in the familiar, learning from the past and taking those lessons from the past and applying them to the present. It is usually very attentive to details, to traditions, to rituals, routines, familiarity. It also really craves stability. A lot of people just sum it up as a longing for tradition or a longing for routine. What Introverted Sensing really does is it superimposes a picture from the past onto the present moment, so that when ISTJs are encountering a new situation, they can immediately compare it to something similar they've experienced in the past, and they can use the same lessons they learned in the past to improve the current situation. To the Introverted Sensing type, they see the objects around them, but each of these objects, each of these experiences has some sort of subjective interpretation for them. Carl Jung said, "Introverted sensing alters the sense perception at its source, thus depriving it of the character of a purely objective influence." So what this means is that an introverted sensing type might see a tree, right? To them, it's not just a tree. While they see the tree, they also are recalling their memories of that specific type of tree. Maybe they remember climbing it when they were a child. Maybe they remember making a bark rubbing on paper. But they have all these subjective memories that are superimposed onto the object itself. Jung also said, the introverted sensing type perceives the same things as everybody else, only he does not stop at the purely objective influence, but concerns himself with this subjective perception excited by the objective stimulus. Now this might sound kind of confusing, but basically what Jung is saying is that he doesn't just see it for what it is. He doesn't just see his surroundings for what they are. He has a subjective impression on those things. And that's where we often call introverted sensing a memory-based function. Instead of just seeing objects and experiences for what they are, the introverted sensing type brings these memories and impressions from the past into that current experience and infuses those objects and those experiences with a certain meaning based on their subjective and their personal experiences and their personal memories. Jung said that subjective perception is characterized by the meaning that clings to it. Introverted sensing wants the meaning from the past experience to live on, and it creates this by establishing traditions and routines and these rituals that keep a certain memory alive or a certain meaning from the past alive. This is why with introverted sensing types you might find that they're very particular when it comes to their holiday traditions. They might have specific family activities that they want to do every single year. You might also notice this in their entertainment choices. They might enjoy rewatching the same shows time and time again because it keeps that past memory alive, that past significance alive in the present and into the future as well. So introverted sensing types like sensory familiarity, and they like consistency, and they like routine. They like knowing what to expect. And they're very particular and careful when it comes to the details. They don't like having things out of order. They don't like spontaneity. They don't like being put on the spot unexpectedly. They like having everything in their life just so. Whereas risk, novelty, big theoretical ideas, and sudden changes can be very, very stressful for them. Next, let's talk about the ISTJ's auxiliary or second function, and that's called extraverted thinking. Extraverted thinking focuses on creating structure in the outside world, creating logical structure so that goals and objectives can be reached as efficiently as possible. So it's concerned with external rules, external order, external systems, empirical evidence, facts, and data. So this gives TJs a very strong focus on results, on whether something will pass or fail, on metrics, and objective logic of what the general consensus says makes sense. TJ types also tend to easily see anything that gets in the way of efficiency. They are always trying to get rid of roadblocks that might stand in the way of their goals. And this is how ISTJs become really productive and hardworking in the world around them. This is the part of them that might have a hard time relaxing, because anytime they sit down to just take it easy, they start thinking of all the things they have to do, and they start trying to get rid of anything that might stand in the way. And a lot of times what stands in the way is relaxation or fun or leisure time. So certain ISTJs can really struggle to prioritize their own free time or their own relaxation time because they're going from task to task. Next, let's look at the ISTJ's third or tertiary function, and that is called Introverted Feeling, or FI for short. Introverted feeling focuses on one's own personal values. It's less concerned with what the majority says is right or wrong, and it's more concerned with what you believe personally is right or wrong. It's a very private, introspective function. ISTJs have a strong sense of what their values are, what their principles are, what they believe is ethical for them, and they tend to be very loyal to their personal ethics. They also tend to be very private about their feelings. Types that have introverted feeling tend to need to mull them over on their own quite a bit. They're not the types that immediately blurt out what they're feeling. In fact, they can feel very awkward and vulnerable if they have to talk about their feelings, especially spontaneously. Instead, when they're going through something emotionally, they often need to get away from everyone else in order to process, in order to sort it all out. And many times they don't even really feel a compulsion to share their feelings with other people. And this tends to give people the idea that ISTJs are possibly cold or insensitive, but that's really not the case most of the time. I've known so many ISTJs who will cry over life insurance commercials or devote lots of time and energy to causes that matter to them, but you just won't see them blurting out all their feelings and all the things that matter to them out loud. They aren't external processors when it comes to their emotions. Next, let's look at the ISTJ's inferior or fourth function. This is called Extraverted Intuition, or NE for short. This is actually the dominant function of ENFPs and ENTPs. So extroverted intuition is all about seeing possibilities, brainstorming new ideas, finding connections and patterns in the world around oneself. Extroverted intuitive types are usually really innovative. They like to change things up. They tend to resist tradition and instead trying to find a new approach to everything. ISTJs trust the tried and true method. They trust what's been proven through past experience to work. And they also trust their own personal experience. They have to experience something for themselves in order to really trust it. And extroverted intuition can feel very, very untrustworthy to ISTJs because it's very much about experimenting with new approaches rather than working with something that's already proven to work. It's about making big changes and evolving and chasing after new ideas. And while ISTJs can appreciate a new idea, they usually have to pass it through this rigorous testing process first to see whether it really works. through their own personal experience and whether it actually makes sense to devote the time and energy to it, because as the extroverted thinking side of ISTJs is very focused on efficiency and getting to objectives and goals rapidly. And so experimenting with a lot of new ideas can really get in the way of that. Whereas if you just work with what you already know works, you're going to often move faster towards reaching a goal. So sometimes extroverted intuition feels a little bit sketchy to them. It can feel a little pointless. Like, why are we wasting time brainstorming new ideas and looking at when we already have certain approaches that we know work through our own experience? However, ISTJs still value extroverted intuition. It's still something that part of them kind of enjoys. And oftentimes it shows up in their humor. They might have this offbeat humor where they find funny, quirky connections between things and make puns about them. It can also show up in their entertainment choices. I know so many ISTJs who love science fiction movies or fantasy movies or movies that are outside the bounds of reality where all these crazy things are happening. And so they can enjoy delving into extrovert intuition in that way. But for many ISTJs, dealing with a lot of change and spontaneity and novelty can feel a little awkward for them. It can feel a little uncertain. And if they're asked to brainstorm or innovate on the spot, they can feel really vulnerable. So overall, what are some signs that you are an ISTJ? 1, you like your physical world just so. You like to have a sense that you know how things are going to unfold. You like having a stable routine and consistency in your life. 2, you're a creature of habit. Rituals and traditions really matter to you. You enjoy creating little pockets in your day that have a certain ritualistic feel to them, whether it's drinking your coffee while you watch the sun come up every morning or watching the evening news at night before you go to sleep. Whatever it is, you probably have little specific habits that just make you feel comfortable and give your life a sense of continuity. 3, you might give objects sentimental meaning because introverted sensing puts a subjective impression on objects around you. You might have very sentimental attachment to specific objects, places, or people. For example, you might like to revisit your childhood home because it gives you a sense that the past didn't just die away. It still has significance. It still has meaning. All those memories, the good memories from your childhood, come back when you visit that place. Or you might have movie tickets from your first date because that has specific sentimental meaning to you. That said, you may not share the sentimental side with everyone. The side you show to the world tends to be much more pragmatic, no nonsense, and logical, but there is this very sentimental inner core to who you are. Next, you are someone who knows how to get things done efficiently. You can easily get roadblocks and inefficiencies out of the way to achieve an objective as quickly as possible. You tend to make decisions based on logic and what makes sense rather than your own personal feelings. In fact, you try to move your feelings aside in order to focus on the facts in a situation. And lastly, you have deeper inner feelings than most people realize, and you have a strong desire to stay true to your own personal moral compass. You may not show your feelings externally, but you also deeply value them and need time alone in order to process those feelings. There's much more about the ISTJ you can find out on my website. This is just a brief look at the ISTJ personality type. You can find out more at psychologydunkie.com. Like and subscribe for more videos about your type and the other 16 personality types. I'd love to hear from you in the comments as well, so leave a comment if you have a question or a thought you'd like to share. Thanks everyone. Bye!